Welcome back, everybody. As you probably guessed from the title of this video, we have some very bad news for a lot of American gun owners out there, and even for folks who don't own guns, this is terrible news because of the type of precedent that it tries to set by the federal government. So, long story short, we're going to presume that most of you guys have seen my videos before on the ATF and their brace. Obviously, I'm not putting this video up on YouTube right now because I can't. I'm suspended from YouTube. So if you guys are watching this video anywhere besides Rumble, head over to my Rumble channel and subscribe, because that's the main place for this video during my suspension. So bottom line is, today is the 13th. The ATF just dropped their quote unquote final rule for firearms with attached stabilizing braces. I'm going to read a couple things from it, but kind of big picture. Let me give you a quick overview here first. Number one, this is to go into effect 120 days from the day it's published. That will probably be Monday. We don't know that yet for sure, but very likely. There will be, at that point, of course, criminal penalties for it. I have spent the last 45 minutes reading all of these documents. I have not read all of them because this is so huge and so comprehensive, and so many people are going to be impacted by this. So again, the rule is going to go into effect 120 days from publication, probably Monday. Anybody who has a braced pistol that I am aware of, they have an exception in here that I've seen, but I've not seen an example of the exception. We'll get to that here in a second. So on the macro overview, anybody who has a braced firearm, if you don't go through the ATF's approved options that we're going to talk about here in a second, you will be a felon overnight, and you will be facing up to 10 years in prison and $10,000 per firearm that you are in possession of, again, as of 120 days from now, according to the ATF. And again, just kind of on the big picture level, the ATF does not have the ability as an executive agency to pass law. And what they're trying to do here is pass a law without Congress being involved or the president. So nobody's passing it in the legislature, and the president is not signing it. They're just saying this is now the law, and upwards of 40 million, very likely much more than that, American citizens, like I just mentioned, will be turned into felons overnight. Again, before I get into the details, what do I suggest you do? Number one, blow up every single one of your political representatives, whether they be federal congressmen, state representatives, your governor, whatever the case may be. Everyone needs to oppose this on every level, because it is one of the most dangerous things I've seen by the federal government during my lifetime, if not the most dangerous. Well, there are probably more dangerous after 9/11, but regardless, it's up there with it. It is that dangerous. This is extremely, extremely dangerous should this go into effect, and you guys are going to see why here in just a second. So getting into what is actually posted, and again, I'm going to link down to this below in the video description. You guys can check it out and do your research yourself. There will probably be a follow-up video because, again, there is a lot to read here. I have not read all of it. I've skimmed over it, and I just want to get this out so everybody knows. You can share this with all your friends on all the social media platforms, because this is crazy. So basically, it says January 13th, 2023, today. The ATF published the final rule factoring criteria for firearms with attached stabilizing braces. So what is a stabilizing brace? It is this, in all types of variations of this, a device designed for people who are handicapped that you can put your arm through to make you a more accurate shooter should you be disabled. So if you have one of those 120 days from now on a firearm, it will be considered a felony for every firearm. Again, literally over 40 million Americans have these, and it's probably higher than that, but at least that many. And so basically what it says is that constitutes a short barrel rifle if it is on a firearm with one of those braces attached and the barrel is less than 16 inches or 18 inches if it is a shotgun. It goes on to say, this is the exception, but I've read through, again, a good bit of this, and I've not seen an example of this, but they do say that there's an exception. The rule does not affect stabilizing braces that are objectively designed and intended as stabilizing brace for use by individuals with disabilities and not shouldering the weapon as a rifle. Such stabilizing braces are designed to conform to the arm and are not a buttstock. However, if the firearm with the stabilizing brace is a short barrel rifle, it needs to be registered within the 120 days from the date of publication of the Federal Register. So that entire paragraph completely contradicts itself. So again, this clearly, with this wraparound in this slot here to put your arm in, is clearly designed to aid someone who is handicapped in firing a firearm. It's very clear. The majority of the examples that they show here have something similar to this. Not all, but most of them do. So again, it's very contradictory. let me get into basically a few examples, and we'll roll them in here on screen so you guys can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. But this is all straight from the ATF's website. So right here you see a Daniel Defense DDM4 SBPW. I have a video on this on my YouTube channel, but you can see that it does have an adjustable brace on there. Other AR style guns with different braces are there. Here's one which is an FN, which has this very brace on it. They say that this is now a short barrel rifle. Continuing on down to different styles of guns, you can see an AK style gun here with a 9mm with a side folding brace. Once again, it has a loop around it that you can easily run through your arm for somebody who is handicapped and wants to use it as such. Another example as we go down here with another brace that is designed for handicapped folks. And they have different, options here. We have some bolt action options here, which are designed again for handicapped folks, but they're saying are now short barrel rifles. And the list goes on, but you guys can get a pretty good idea here of what the ATF says is a violation of this. They also have released some not as common guns like an Uzi that you guys see here. They also have some Glock kits that are adapted for folks who are handicapped. You guys can see those here. But again, you get a pretty good idea that just about every single stabilizing brace in America, according to the ATF, is now part of this and is now a short barrel rifle. And once again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Everyone who has them, including people who have no idea this happened, because again, Congress didn't vote on it. It was not debated. It was not passed in law. The news probably isn't covering this. After 120 days after the date this is published, which again is probably going to be Monday, will be a felon in possession of a National Firearms Act firearm. So the ATF put this chart up here that you guys can see. I'm obviously going to focus on the individuals because that is the majority of you, but they also have some guidance for law enforcement agencies, federal firearms licensees like myself, and others. But basically, they consider you the person. This is literally how they define you in the table. They define you as an unlicensed possessor. Unlicensed possessor. So here's some options as to what you can actually do. You can replace the short barrel with what they're calling a short barrel. You can replace the short barrel in your firearm with one that's 16 inches or longer. You can remove the brace so that it cannot be reattached. Now, I've read through this, and again, I see nowhere listed that they actually tell you what that means or what that definition is legally. Again, it's not a law. This is the ATF just making it up, and they're using this chart here as a way to explain it to you. It may be defined in the literature, but again, I've read through a lot of it. I've not seen that yet. They also say that you can forfeit your firearm to the local ATF office. Now, I try not to give legal advice here. I'm not an attorney, full disclosure. That said, do not ever give your firearm to the ATF. All you're doing is submitting evidence of a possible crime. Don't do that. You have a right to not incriminate yourself. Do not do that. The ATF says you can destroy the firearm. There actually is guidance, not in this rule, but in actual laws on how firearms can be destroyed. And here's the big one that I think they want to get most people under. So I should also mention that in the explanation of this ruling, they mention that there's over $250 million that they're losing every year. And they don't explain what that means. But what my opinion of what that means is that they estimate that $250 million of tax revenue they're missing out on because folks have braces. And again, I realize a lot of people watching this don't know what I'm talking about. So if you were to create a firearm, let's just say an AR-15 for simplicity's sake, and you put a stock on it, not a brace, you put a stock on it and your barrel was 10.5 inches. In order to legally do that in America, you would need to submit a tax stamp application for a $200 stamp for a short barrel rifle, which is a legal class of firearm in America. So what they're saying here, at least the way I read it, is that they're missing out on $250 million in tax stamps not filed. Is that a motivation as to why they're doing this? Certainly possible. There's a lot of other motivations, though, that we can expound upon later on. But the option that the ATF gives you as a quote-unquote unlicensed possessor is that you can register on an E-form, E-form 1, during the 120-day compliance date period, which is there. And it says in parentheses, and this is key, this is what they're trying to do to entice people to do this. It says, not required to pay the $200 making tax during the 120 days. Couple issues with that. Number one is that they're trying to give you a quote-unquote grandfather clause, which again, they legally can't do. The ATF does not have the ability to do that. If it is in fact a short barrel rifle, they're mandated by Congress to collect the tax on that. So I mean, they can't do that. Number one, it's illegal for the ATF to do that. It's also illegal for them to declare these short barrel rifles and short barrel shotguns. Regardless, that is what they're saying they're doing. They're giving you a tax holiday during the 120-day period. They specifically mentioned the E-form. I will show you guys here. I went to the directions in the new guidance here, what it says to do, and the actual form it tells you to fill out literally isn't even there. I obviously have an e-form account because this is my job. This is what I do for a living. And the form that they're telling you to fill out doesn't exist. So let's presume that it starts on Monday, right? Let's just kind of work through a scenario here. Let's presume the 120 days starts on Monday and folks were actually going to register their firearms. The e-forms, for anybody who doesn't know, is down 1 day a week, and it's only operational during certain hours. So you have to think it's only going to be operational 6 days a week, and many hours throughout the day it's also not operational. E-forms takes a long time to fill out for somebody who knows what they're doing and does this for a living like myself, never mind somebody who's never done it. And it's literally a government website, so it is super clunky. It's not intuitive in any way, and we're expecting that 40 million people are going to be able to use this website in 120 days and get their firearms in the tax-free period registered. It's not going to happen. I can just tell you that. But that's what they're saying. They're saying if you do that, then you're not a felon at the end of the 120-day period. There's a lot of other things that go along with that and dangers of that. Again, there will probably be a follow-up video on this on my channel. But again, initial thoughts on that is, number one, this is a gigantic registry scheme in addition to lots of other things. And as we all know, in America, a firearms registry is completely illegal. It is explicitly banned by Congress. The federal government cannot legally maintain a registry of firearms. So what they're trying to do here is use the National Firearms Act, which is a law that was passed in 1934, I believe. And they're trying to use that as a way to create a new firearms registry. Again, it's wrong on every level. They don't have the ability to do it. They don't have the ability to give you a grandfather tax. They don't have the ability to give you 120 days. That's just made up out of thin air. They don't have the ability to mandate you go to a website. They don't have any of these capabilities unless Americans essentially allow them to do it, right? If we allow them to do it, then they'll do it. And as we know with the recent EPA case, the Supreme Court has said executive agencies do not have this authority. They are attempting to make law. So again, what do you guys need to do? Just like I said in the beginning of this video, you need to contact your representatives, federal, state, everywhere. Obviously, we need to fight this. Lawsuits will be filed immediately by Gun Owners of America, Firearms Folks like Coalition, the Second Amendment Foundation, and others. I recommend you guys donate to all of those organizations as well, because this fight is not going to be cheap. There will be links to them down below in the video description for you guys to donate to. Donate to them. But there's a lot of different ways we can fight this. So number one, states, we can have states pass laws that this is not allowed here, and any federal agents that attempt to enact this type of enforcement within state boundaries will be arrested on site by the state police. That absolutely could happen because obviously this is a civil rights violation. Most states have civil rights crimes already, and just turning this into one, it definitely is one way to fight this. Additionally, on the federal level, having Congress do this, slapping down the ATF, letting them know they are not allowed to do this. And then of course, we're gonna fight it through the courts as well with the organizations that I just mentioned. And all of those need to happen quickly, and they all need to happen with a lot of energy and support behind them. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, this is one of the most dangerous things I've ever seen during my lifetime for the federal government. Imagine overnight if tomorrow, let's say there's 350 million Americans right now. Imagine if overnight, in 120 days, I guess we'll say, better said, 1 in 10 people is a felon for something that is completely harmless, that hurts no one, and that most of them, probably 95% of them who own these items, don't even know this is happening. And then all of a sudden, a SWAT team of federal agents from the ATF, the FBI, the Department of Justice rolls up on every one of their houses with an MRAP, an armored vehicle, and they have full auto weapons. They're kicking their door in, pointing them at their children in the early morning hours. That is what the federal government is trying to do to 10% of the American population. Let that sink in. That's how serious this is. That's how crazy this is. We need to get active. We need to get active quickly. With that, I suppose I will end the video there. Again, there will be links to all of this down below. And this video could go on for hours. It is insane. It is dangerous. It needs to be stopped immediately. Like I said earlier, if you guys are watching this, it's not on YouTube as of right now because I'm suspended. Follow me here. Follow me anywhere you guys are watching this. If you're watching on Instagram, Facebook, if you're watching on Telegram, if you're watching it on Parler, if you're watching it on Gab, if you're watching it on Truth, wherever you're watching this, follow me. There will be updates. This fight will continue. It is not over. Get active. Let's make it happen. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.